with Herbie's success, and that was a gigantic success, you know. It was a success that we could never have dreamed about, you know. I mean, in the year of 1966, we outsold the Beatles, you know. We sold over 13 million albums in America, you know, because all these albums we'd made, you know, at one point Herbie had, I think, 5 albums in the top 20. The whole thing went, you know, it wasn't just, you know, we hit on a song called Taste of Honey, which was a huge hit as a single, but not only that, now you had Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass performing brilliantly. I mean, it all just happened, you know, all the work that we put into it, those 3 or 4 years, built it up into the final payoff, and when the payoff came, we couldn't hold it back if we wanted to. I mean, you know, you pick up a phone, you're selling 50,000 records a day, you know. And everything else, you know, all of a sudden they became interested in Chris Montez, and they became interested in the Baja Marimba Band, which is another side venture we came up with. And so all of a sudden we now had the wherewithal to really have a company, you know. And I would say the first major artist we signed was Sergio Mendes in Brazil '66. And I heard about, I was a huge fan of, you know, and by this time the music business changed dramatically. You know, the Beatles came and they changed the world, you know. And all of a sudden you had people producing their own music. I mean, it wasn't like the A&R guy made the record and, you know, the singer heard the songs. And I mean, there were still things like that, but more and more it was more organic, you know. And the music was getting to be fantastic. And music we cared about and loved and wanted to be part of, you know. So in the summer of '63, the Jobim album was one of my favorite albums, still is, of all time, with Astrid Gilberto, and I loved Brazil '65, you know. It was just incredible, bossa nova music. And as luck would have it, I was having breakfast with our Seattle distributor, and I was supposed to meet him at the Hyatt House, which is on Sunset Boulevard at the time, which was called briefly the Riot House, you know, because a lot of rock bands stayed there and just tore it up. But and he saw me drive by in my car, and I was in my office, and he called me and he says, "Did you forget breakfast?" I said, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'll be right there," you know. And at that breakfast, you know, thank God he called me back, because he said, by the way, you know, Capitol let Sergio go, and they're doing a new band, and it's Brazil '66 now. He's got 2 new singers, and they're rehearsing at Jordi Hormel's, you know. Just, I said, well, where is that, you know? And he told me the address, and I called up there, can I come over? And I think I did. I think I brought Herb, and by this time Gil. We had now gotten Gil Friesen to join us in November of '64. And we all just fell in love with each other. You know, it was just a fantastic thing. By that time, Sergio was signed as a keyboard player with Atlantic. And so Nestle Erdogan wanted him very much to sign this new band with Atlantic. So this was our first little competitive thing where we were actually competing with a company. And then Herbie said, look, not only will I produce you, but you'll come on a road with me. You know, and Nestle, being the great guy that he was and a great friend of Sergio's to the end of his life, said, Sergio, these people can do more for you than I can do. I would suggest you make that deal. But I will keep on recording you as a solo keyboard player, you know. That's how much he thought of Sergio, you know. And at the time, you know, this was my first negotiation, really, because there was a lawyer, and he started asking me for things, and I said yes to everything. And at the time, we had hired an A&R guy who was knowledgeable in these things, but it didn't work out with this A&R guy. He was an A&R guy from the 50s, and here we were kind of in the mid-60s, you know, we hired him because we liked him and we appreciated his taste, but he didn't move like you got to move in the 60s, so to speak, you know. It was more artist orientated, and you better get to know these people, you know, and be part of them, you know. And he looked at the deal I made, and he says, man, that's a crazy deal. I said, yeah, but they're going to sell 1 million records. I know we're going to sell 1 million records with these people. They're fantastic, you know. And by this time, we had assembled, with the money we made, we assembled the kind of company we wanted. We bought the lot, the Chaplin lot on La Brea. You know, we moved in there and we padlocked some of the buildings. We obviously couldn't use them, but we built up offices, and that was our home, you know. And it was a great place to work, you know, just a fantastic place. We closed the gate, and everybody inside that gate was A&M. You know, it was just fantastic. So Sergio became a big star, you know, and a big hit, and had 4 or 5 huge albums for the next 3-4 years. And Herbie and, you know, I maybe sat in on a track or 2. By this time, the business was growing to the point where I could no longer be in a studio. You know, I had to be, the phone was ringing too much. I had to pretty much take care of business, you know. So that's where we went. And, you know, and then the rest of it is I went to Monterey in 67, you know, and I heard all this great rock and roll music, and I felt embarrassed and upset because we didn't have any, you know, and I decided we needed to get some, so we went out and got into the rock and roll business, you know, and I think we did pretty good.